Hello, everybody. My name is Grace, and today I will read Braskets. And the book today is Alien Collective Part 1 Resistance. Destruction, annihilation, pain, sorrow, damages flooded Charlotte's brain. Once lush, verdant planet was filled with amazing, strange creatures, transformed into charred desert when one experiment set its entire atmosphere on fire. Images of another world, this one's covered with violating seas, at the bottom which advanced, peaceful civilizations flourished. The sea was their home, their livelihood, and ultimately their power source. Huge factories grown from organisms that resembled coral vented clouds of seemingly harmless gases that became an abundant food source for a class of microorganisms few had studied. By the time the inhabitants realized that complex food chain was turning the water toxic, it was too late. A planet buried in trash. Another wiped out a bioengineered disease. Water, wars, famine, nearly infinite scenarios of obliteration played out and again in Charlotte's mind, like a horrifying movie. How were the aliens doing this to her? The pain was excruciating. That didn't seem to end. To her, the alien's message was clear. Smudge and change or die. 2 days earlier, Charlotte was stuffing her pack with provisions for the raid on the street. What were what the resistance called sterilization and re-education centers. The coordinated effort involved resistance cells around the world, all planning to attack the structures at the same time. This was the first time the resistance was attempting a military effort of this scale, and Charlotte wouldn't miss it for anything, even if her father refused to let her leave the compound. It's my responsibility to keep you safe, had argued. You're not going. It took less than a minute to pry her bedroom window open and even less time to bypass the security system with a paperclip and some gun. Once outside, she crept low across the dog lawn. Though she didn't really need to. Her father would be in Mr. Morrison's basement, a fallout shelter built in the 1950s, watching live video of the raid, looking for moments of heroism to use later. Games would be made tonight, legends created, and Charlotte wasn't one to sit on the sidelines. Sure, she was only 15, but she had aspirations. One day, she would be live in the videos her father made, using her heroism to convince people to fight the alien invasion. She vaulted over the old, creaky gate before sprinting down the alley to the designated meeting point behind Mr. Tire's shop dumpster. Sam was nowhere to be seen. Moments later, he skidded to the darkness behind the dumpster. Took you long enough? Scarlet whispers. Tell me about it, Sam grumbled. I had to wait until Mum was engrossed in her shows. I was thinking to I was starting to think that maybe you're chicken out. Charlotte gave Sam a playful push. We need to move or we'll miss everything, Sam argued. The strike force is leaving through the east gate, but actuality force is going out the north gate. If we stay with them, I don't think anyone would notice us. Sam's dad was a muckety chuck high up in the resistance who organized the home essentials and vehicles that made up the military wing. He was in Mr. Morrison's basement too, most likely issuing comments. Charlotte nodded. The Sam and Sam bolted into the street, trying to keep the shadows. Charlotte took a deep breath and followed them. I'm sorry, Charlotte heard in her mind. It wasn't her voice, though no one recognized. She opened her eyes and blinked away the birds. Her head dropped instantly, as if her brain were trying to burst out into her skull. She was on a she was on a bed in a stalk, clean room the color of fresh celery. Drawing board near the ceiling provides a bright but pleasant light. I know you're in a great deal of pain, but you can find comfort in knowing the first procedure was a success. The voice came again, but this time she could somehow tell it was coming from right from her right. Turning her head was excruciating. You are now particularly connected to the collectively. Standing just out one standing just out of arm's reach from the bed. But she could was what she could only think as a lizard person, who observed her with her head slightly cocked, almost like a confused dog. It wore a long bright red robe with small gold baubles dangling noisily from its sleeves. Lizard person is somewhat accurate, the voice said, or even lizard man. Since I am male, giving you a wrong experience, I can experience the comparison. What's happening? Charlotte coughed. Her throat was painfully dry. How you talking in my head? The collective link has many successful applications, the creature explained. Species from all over the galaxy are part of the collective, and it would be impossible, given the infinite variations and evolution, for all of us to communicate with sound. The original races developed the link as a way to translate meaning. The explanation was dumped into Charlotte's mind like a high-speed download, and it took her a moment to sort it out. Painfully, she came to the realization that she was talking with an alien. They must have captured her. She tried to sit up, but her arms and legs were strapped to the bed somehow. She couldn't lift them more than a few inches. The pain in her head was so bad, when she did move, she quickly gave up. The alien ignored her struggle and kept talking in her head. His tone was almost like someone talking to a small child. The system is complex. In simple terms, I sent my indeed meaning to you over the link, and the link uses established language patterns and meaning structure in your mind to translate my message into something you understand. And for most humans, because you are exceptionally verbal creatures, it comes through as words. But when you're fully connected, it could also come through as text, images, or even emotions. So you can read my mind, Charlie asked. Not really. I only receive message you intend to send to me, or that are sent out to anyone who may be listening. It takes some time to get used to it. How rude of me. I'm Charlie's mind was filled with series of hisses, grunts, and gurgles. The link doesn't do well in individual names, as the intent and meaning you are always so personal. If you'd like to give me a name that will help you identify me, though doing so isn't necessary for the link to work. You simply need to think of me. The creature's face reminded her of the RT, the lizard her third grade class kept as a pet. It was her turn to take home and care for the weekend. She accidentally forgot about it at the back seat of her dad's US-3 and froze to death. Her dad made her buy the class a new lizard with her allowance savings. The entire traumatic experience ended any possibility of future pet ownership. Child looked up and saw an expression of shock on the tense face. She apparently has sent the entire memory over the link. Charlie smiled. The creature composed himself. After a moment, she heard his voice in her mind again. Artie is a fine name. It's good that you are able to recall that moment. An installation of the link is somewhat traumatic, and the mind has to rewire itself afterward. Charlie tried to bring up other memories, but everything prior to for a few minutes ago was a blur, muddled together with horrible images of destruction and suffering. She tried to piece whatever she could. Her father, bits of life before invasion, snippets of resistance, compounds, gunshots. Overwatching emotion colored them all, an intense hatred of these invaders, the collective. Don't worry, Ozzy said. The first procedure is always the worst. Second will be much easier. It will make sense in time. And that's all the first 9 pages of the book, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.